30 minutes, and then we continue with the Q&A session. So 10:30 to 12, basically, yeah. So if you have anything to ask, you can drop down a message or you can chat live with us um, using the chat box. Okay, so without further ado, I pass this session to Dr. Muhammad Noor to deliver his talk. Okay, I pass to you, Doctor.
Okay, Assalamualaikum, selamat pagi. Thank you, Dr. Mazlan and SQS for inviting me for this session today. All right. So for that, let me share my slides first. So basically, this is a workshop, a hands-on workshop on how to conduct literature review using NVivo. All right. Okay, so I hope all of you have downloaded and installed NVivo in your machine. And all the sample files that I'll be using in this workshop can be downloaded from this link, all right? https://bit.ly/nvivo4lr, right? So we'll be using some of these sample files later on, all right? So you can download as we go through with this session, all right? Okay, so I'll just move on, yeah. Okay. All right, so this is the content of the workshop for today. I'm going to cover a few things. All right, so basically this is just a basic ways of using NVivo, all right? So I'll be starting with introduction to NVivo. What is NVivo is actually, all right? And then how you conduct a systematic literature review and how can NVivo help you in the process, all right? Kemudian, we will be looking at working with your literature, how you define file classification and attributes, how do you import your files, in this case, your literature. And then we will be look at how you can import your citation from reference management software, if you're using one, all right? Okay, and then how you put your literature, and then finally, how to use queries to explore your literature, okay? So let's start with the first part first, introduction to NVivo. So basically, NVivo is a software used for qualitative and mixed method research, all right? So for those who have not heard this software before, it is mainly used for qualitative research, all right? It is used to analyze unstructured text, all right? But it can also be used to analyze audio, video, image data, including but not limited to interview, focus groups, surveys, social media, journals, articles, and so on. And it is produced by QSR International. All right, just to give you some ideas of how NVivo works, all right, this one I'll just skip it, all right. These slides actually can be downloaded from the link that I have given just now, all right. Okay, so basically just to give you some ideas of how NVivo works, I will share this video with you so that you get some ideas of what actually NVivo and how it works, all right? Okay, so that's basically an introduction video of NVivo lah, right? Okay, I'll just continue. Okay, so this is the NVivo workspace, which I will explain later once we get into the Bitly link, yeah? All right, okay. Sorry, Dr. Jet is asking for Bitly link. This one is the Bitly link. I'll put in the comment section for the sample files, yeah? Right? All right, I have typed it in the comment section. All right, so this one I'll be go through this again once we go to the hands-on session later on, right? Okay, let's look at how you normally conduct literature review, all right? So this is the manual ways or the manual approach of us. If you're not using NVivo lah, right? I assume, right? This is the normal way that we use to conduct literature review, right? In a manual ways, right? Normally, what we will do is we will start with gathering some keywords for our search, and then we will go to the database, and then we will use the keywords that we have gathered, and then we do the search in the online database. Then we will download the files, and maybe some of you who prefer to work with hard copies of the files, you will print it, right? And then some of you who are, a bit rajin, you might do some, jot down some of the information that you got from the literature for each literature that you go through lah. That what I did when I did my PhD. I have this form, what I call as a data extraction form, where for each papers that I read, I will do some like summaries of what are the content of each files, all right? So this is how it looked like, right? So the problem with that is, as you go through with your literature review, you downloaded so many files, you printed so many files, all right? It is harder to concentrate on the details of the text, right? Because you have so many files with you, right? And then unless you have a very good filing system, you will end up with a mess, right? And then you will get easily overwhelmed with the amount of information to retain, because as a human, we normally use our memories to remember everything about the papers. And as a human, we have so much we have limited capabilities, right, to memorize everything, right? So therefore, you normally get overwhelmed with a lot of papers that you have to read, okay? And then you end up with unsystematic, incoherent review and lack of critical analysis and synthesis, all right? So I know some of you, when you have, read so many papers, and then when you comes to writing your literature review or writing your finding and your discussion, you will get to this point where you feel like, okay, I've read this paper somewhere, but you can't seem to remember where it is, all right? Or where was it, right? So this is where NVivo comes in to help you, all right? Make it more organized and systematic in doing your literature review, okay. All right, so this is normally how we conduct, literature review manually, all right, without using NVivo or any software. Okay, so this is actually the steps that I follow when I did my PhD to conduct a systematic literature review, where there are phases that you have to follow, which I will not go through in this session because this is more on NVivo itself. So if you are interested on how to conduct a systematic literature review and what are the process that you have to go through, you can download this paper by Cranfield from British Journal of Management, right? It lists out what are the steps that you have to follow in order to conduct a systematic review, right? Because nowadays I see that a lot of papers coming in that just produce literature review, all right? There are a lot of journals that allow you to produce your literature review, all right? Especially if it's done systematically lah. Okay, right, let's move on. Okay, so I will just reiterate balik lah, benda ni actually come from the video that I've shared before, alright? So this is how NVivo help you to make it easier for you to do a systematic literature review, alright? For example, alright, you have this one paper, right? So normally what you will do is you highlight, alright? When you read a paper, hard copies of paper, what you do is you normally highlight, right, the papers, important points in your papers, and then you will do some annotation of what the highlighted text means to you lah, right? So actually NVivo did the same thing, but it is done in a digital approach lah, right? So basically, let's say you have one paper here, let's say paper 1, all right? So what you can do is you can, what we call here is code the paper, passage of the papers, right? And then attach a code, right, for each of the passage that you have read, right? For example, in this paper, this part here, I coded as quality, this part as value, trust, satisfaction, and so on. So, and then you will move on to the second papers and so on, right? So NVivo allow you to attach a code. So in this case, what we mean by code is not like when you're coding, like you're doing programming or something. A code is simply means a text or index to passage that in your literature, right? The same way you highlight and annotate your literature manually, right? So you will do this for every papers that you've read. Okay, you will do coding for each of the papers and you will attach a code for each of the passage, right? Okay, so for example, you have, let's say 100 papers, you will do this coding for all of the papers. So let's say in paper number N, let's say 100, paper number 100, the hundredth paper, you also have code such as quality, trust, value, and so on. Okay, so what NVivo will do is it will help you, all right, once you coded your paper, all right, with just one click, NVivo can pull out all relevant passages from different sources, in this case, from the different files, and allow you to read and compare them together, right? So for example, you just want to read everything about trust, right? So of course, in various paper, they talk about trust everywhere in the paper. So if you want to read it, manually, right, you have to find, it is hard for you to find where in the passage or in the text that talk about trust, right? So since you have coded in NVivo, you can just click the notes that you want, right? And then it will pull together all the passages that you have highlighted and coded with trust, right? And you can read it together, right? So it make it easier for you to read passages from different texts together and compare them, right? So just to illustrate, for example, right? So I want to read about trust only, right? So with just one click in NVivo, it will pull out, all right, all the passages about trust, right? And in one view, you can compare, right, from different papers. So it make it easier for you to compare findings from paper 1 with paper 2, paper 3, and so on about trust, for example. Okay, so that's how NVivo works actually, right? Okay, so in addition to that, right, NVivo also allow you to answer questions about your literature. So in this case, you can explore about your literature. For example, this is especially helpful if you want to write a meta-analysis paper, right? You want to do some meta-analysis of your papers, of your literature. Okay, for example, you want to answer the question about, let's say, what are the most common keywords used to describe the literature in your area? Or how many papers have used theory X in field Y, for example, right? How many papers have adopted research strategy, for example, using case study to study about concept U, quality, for example? How does concept W, for example, value relate to concept V, satisfaction, for example, and many more? So this is how powerful NVivo can be when you're using queries, because it allows you to query your data, in this case, your literature. So in short, or in other words, NVivo help you as a researcher to identify gaps in your literature and justify your contribution of your studies. All right? Okay, so far ada soalan tak? Is there any questions on what NVivo actually really is and how it can help you doing literature review? Boleh? All right. Okay, so in short, NVivo help you to produce better quality literature review with less effort, reduce reliance on memory and misplacing important data and so on lah, right? Banyak benda. All right, so I will not go through this in details, all right? Because we only have 1.5 hours. Okay, so next I will go straight to the hands-on part of this workshop, right? The first part on the hands-on session is how you work with your literature, right? Your data, right? So in this case, I will show you how to define, right, classification and attributes, importing files, in this case, your literature into NVivo, and importing citation from reference management software if you are using one, right? Don't worry if you're not using any reference management software, right? But it is helpful kalau you pakai reference management software such as EndNote, Mendeley, and so on lah, right? So before we go into that, I just have to explain what does classification and attributes mean in NVivo. All right. Okay, so when we say classification and attributes, all right, there are two types of classification in each of an NVivo project, right? So classification simply means class ataupun types, right? Or category, okay? So in NVivo, there are two types of classification that you normally use, right? The first one is called file classification. So in this case, file classification actually refers to the type of files or the type of data in your projects, right? So in this case, for example, you may have in your project, you have interview transcripts, right? You have observation notes, articles, web page, report, and so on. These are the file classification. Maksudnya jenis-jenis file yang you akan gunakan dalam you punya NVivo, right? Okay. So simply to make it simple, file classification merujuk kepada jenis-jenis file yang you ada dalam you punya project NVivo yang you pakai, right? Okay. And then we have case classification. This refer to the each type of case in your project, right? Especially if you're doing qualitative research, all right, you will have case for each of you have case for your project, right? So this actually case refer to the unit of analysis of your project lah, right? Sometimes you study about people, so therefore your case classification will be a people lah, right? Or interviewees, right? Sometimes if you study about organization, so therefore your case classification will be an organization, right? So there are two types of classification in NVivo, as I said just now. File classification refer to the data, right? Case classification refer to the unit of analysis, right? Or type of case in your project. But for this workshop, we will mainly work with file classification because we don't have anyone, any case. In this case, you tak buat interview, you tak buat observation, or you don't do any data collection lah, right? So your data simply come from your literature. So therefore, we will only look at file classification, right? So before you can use your classification, you have to define it, right? What is it? Is it a interview transcript? Is it a observation note? Is it an articles and so on, right? So you have to define, right? So for each of these classification, we have attributes, right? For example, right, for this workshop, right, we will mainly work with our files or our data is actually our reference, right, or journal articles, right? So therefore, you can say that your file classification is the reference, right? Refer to references, okay? So therefore, for each of these references, you will have attributes, right, that describe the file, right? So in this case, some of the attributes for references are such as authors, year, title, journal, volume, and so on, right? And for each of the file, you will have a value, right, attached to each attribute. For example, let's say you have file A, the author is William C. It is produced in 2001, the title, the journal names, volume, and so on. All right, so this is how it works. All right, so you have file classification. First, you have to define what is the file classification. Then you have to define what are the attributes, and then what are the value for each of the attributes. Clear? All right. Okay, let me know if I'm going too fast or anything. Right, so this is case classification. This is an example. All right, so let's say you have done an interview or you did observations on people and so on. So therefore, you have case classification. But for this workshop, of course, you don't have case classification because you have not done any data collection, right? So you have people, for example, you interview people. So therefore, your case classification will be a people, all right? So therefore, they will have each interviewees or the people will have attributes such as name, age, gender, and so on. And for each of your case, they will have their own values attached to each attribute. So this one, we will not be using this today, right? Okay, so next, we will go through straight into NVivo, how to import your files, all right? Okay, so hopefully all of you have installed NVivo. So can you launch your NVivos? I will show you how to import your file, in this case, your literature into your NVivo. So I will share my NVivo screen, you guys. Okay, I will stop this first. Okay, so where is my NVivo? Okay. All right, so I will create a new project. All right. So semua dah launch ke NVivo dah ada right? Make sure you have launched your NVivo, right? So create a new project in your NVivo, right? So you can give a title for your project. So in this case, you can just put any title that you like, right? So in this case, I will just put test, right? Okay. So and then you can put description for your project, what it is about, right? So description will be useful if you're working with groups, because in groups, right? Kalau katakan you buat this project in groups where a lot of there are more than one people, right, that will do the coding. So therefore, it will be helpful if you put some description for your project, right? Otherwise, you can just leave it blank, and then you can locate, all right, where you want to save your project. Kemudian there is this option whether you want to write user action to project event log. All right. So what this means is actually you actually telling NVivo whether you want NVivo to write down or jot down a log of all the activities that you have done in your project. Right. So this is useful when you are doing qualitative data analysis, because sometimes bila you buat so many things, all right, and then you salah at one step, right? You want to go back, right? Look at where you want to pick up, a point where you want to pick up. So therefore, you can use a log, right? So in this case, it's up to you whether you want NVivo to write a project event log or not, right? So I normally do this because, you know, sometimes you salah kat mana-mana, you nak tengok balik kat mana you nak start balik, where the point yang you nak start, nak restart balik, right? Okay, so you can refer to the project event log. Otherwise, you can just untick this one, right? Okay, so then click OK. So NVivo will create a blank project. Okay, sekejap. Right. Okay, so you got the blank project. So this is the NVivo workspace. So basically, it is divided into 4 sections, right? So on top here, you have all the ribbons that you can use, right? Dia punya interface sama lebih kurang macam all the software that you use in Windows lah, especially, alright? So on top here, you have all the ribbons, alright? Kemudian on the left side, you have this what we call as apa nama dia? All right, this one is called navigation view. All right, so navigation view here, there are allow you to navigate to different items in your project. Right, so normally you will have quick access. Right, this will provide quick access to the most common item that you will use in your project, especially files, memo, and notes. Kemudian you have data. This refer to your data for your project, right? Kemudian this is the codes, right? Refer to the codes that you attach to your text, right? Cases will refer to the cases in your project, right? Notes will refer to memos that you use, right? When you conduct qualitative research, normally you have a diary, right? Or what we call as researchers' diaries. So this is where you store your diaries, right? Diaries entries in notes, or what we call as memo, right? And then search here refer to the queries, all right, that we will explore later on, all right? And then map here is a tool that you use to create diagram for your findings or for your data, all right? And then outputs is all the reports that can be generated by NVivo for your project lah. Kemudian, if you click on this navigation view, all right, everything that is listed in navigation view will be listed in a detailed view. For example, you have stored some files in your files section here. So all the files will be listed in the list view here, in the middle here. And then let's say you have a file here, you click the files, it will open up in a detailed view. All right. So this is the workspace of NVivo, right? Okay, boleh ya? All right. So the first step that we're going to do for today for the hands-on part is the first thing that you need to do in doing the literature review is you have to define your file classification and the attributes. Okay, before you can import your files into NVivo, you have to define what are the types of files that you want to import and what are the attributes of the files, right? So to do that, right, what you can do is go to the navigation view, click on file classification, right? And then in the list view, right click, right? And choose new classification, right? So in this case, NVivo allow you to define your own classification. All right. So in this case, if you have a really specific classification that you want to define yourself, then you can create a new classification. Or otherwise, it also give you an option to add one or more predefined classification to the project. All right. So for this workshop, I will use one of the predefined classification that is already provided by NVivo. Right. So click add one or more predefined classification to the project. So as you can see here, all right, NVivo already created some of the predefined files that is a file classification for you, right? So dia ada macam-macam lah, right? Artwork, build, blog, and so on, right? So for this workshop, we will be using this file classification that is called reference, right? I will use reference. Okay, so reference refer to, you know, your references, right? Okay, you can also use journal article if you want. There is article journal here somewhere. Yeah, journal article pun boleh, alright? But I will be using references or reference. Okay, yeah? Right, then you click OK. So you only define the file classification, which is reference. Now, NVivo create, all right, a new file classification, and then it also created, all right, all the attributes for references. This is the normal attribute that you have for a reference, all right? So you will have reference type, author, title, and so on. These are the attributes. Okay, so the common attributes that you use for reference are there already, all right? Okay, so of course, you can delete if let's say there are some attribute yang you rasa you won't be using at all, right? For example, I normally just delete this custom 1 until 7 because I will not be using it, or you know, it will be just a waste of space. You can just, all right, highlight, right, and then right click and just delete them, right? Because I will not be using them anyway, right? So then yes, it will delete all these attributes in reference attributes. Okay, and you can also add new attributes as well, right? If let's say you have specific things that you want to add, specific attribute that you want to add in your reference. For example, in my reference, I normally also add 4 new attributes, which is, I think it will be helpful for me to do the analysis later, right? So let's say you want to add new attributes to this reference. Okay, what you can do is go down, scroll down to this blank section here, and then right click. Sorry, you go to file classification and click reference, right? Go to file classification, click reference, and then you right click in the reference, choose new attribute. Okay, boleh ikut tak? So this is how you add new attributes to your file classification that is your reference. Okay, so for this one, let's try to add 4 new attributes to reference other than the existing ones. We will add 4 more new attributes. Okay, so I'll normally add research approach. The research approach refer to what are the approach of the research, whether it is quantitative, qualitative, or mixed method research, right? Whether the paper is adopt a mixed method, qualitative or quantitative research, right? So you have to define what is the type for these attributes. So in this case, these are the types available, right? For research approach, it is text, okay? And then you can define the values for these attributes, okay? So by default, there are 2 values that is already there, which is unassigned or not applicable, right? But of course, you can add more values, predefined values, all right? So in this case, I will add qualitative, right? And then I will add quantitative. and the other one is mixed method. Right? Okay. So therefore, for each paper later on, once I read the paper, I can just say that this paper is qualitative, this paper is quantitative, mixed method, and so on. So I can make comparison later on. Okay. Okay, so once you did that, just click OK. Right? So if you go back to reference, you go back to file classification, right? Click on file classification, you can see reference there, right? Below here is already it already add another attribute, which is research approach. So let's try add few more in reference, right? Click on reference. I will add 3 more fields or own attributes, right? New attributes. Another one that I normally add is sample size. What is the sample size of the paper? How many samples that they include in their studies, right? So of course, sample size is integer. Okay, so you don't have to define the value because each paper will have different sample size, right? So you just leave it like that, right? So sample size integer. Okay. Kemudian I will add another one, which is of course, all of these are optional, yeah, right? This is what I normally add for my literature review to make it easier for me to do analysis, comparison later on, right? A field of application. Okay, field of application simply means like, okay, where does this papers, the setting of these papers, is it in tourism or is it in retail and so on, right? So you can do this as well, right? So for field of application, the type is text, and you don't have to specify the value because you can just add them later, right? Once you do the review of each paper, right? Kemudian I will add another one. New attributes is country of study, so that I know where this research is conducted. Is it in Malaysia or is it in USA or so on, right? So again, it is text, right? And you don't have to specify the value because you can, add type in the value later on. Okay, boleh ya? Right? So if you go back to file classification and under references, right? Reference, you can see that all the attributes that you have added just now are there already, right? Research approach, sample size, field of application, and country of study. Okay ya? Setakat ni semua boleh ikut lah.
Boleh.
Okay, good. All right, okay. So once we have defined what is the file that we're going to use, which is reference and the attributes, now we will import your files, your literature into NVivo, right? Okay, so to import your files in NVivo, you go to files, right? Data, files, right? Okay, there are 2 ways for you to import, right? One way is you go to this detail view and right click and import items, or you can also use the ribbons up here. All right. So basically, these are all the types of file that you can import into NVivo, right? Okay. All right. So these are types of or format of file that you can import into NVivo, right? So I normally just use detail view and right click and import items because it is much faster that way, right? So let's import one file first, all right? Okay. So right click in detail view, make sure you click on files and then in detail view, right click, import items, right? And then locate where is your file located in your laptop or computer, all right? So let's say I want to import this paper here, right? Just click, right? And open. Okay. Boleh ya sampai sini? All right, so once you did that, all right, you browse and locate the file that you want to import, all right? There is option down here, right? whether you want to create a case for each imported file. All right. So what does this mean is, all right, for each file that you import, does it belong to one case in your study? Right? So for example, let's say katakan you import one interview transcript. This interview transcript belong to one case in your qualitative research, right? Okay, for example, I interview Dr. Mazlan, right? So this what I importing now is actually interview transcript of Dr. Mazlan. So therefore, I can say that, all right. So this file is actually a case in my project. But for this file that I am importing here, it is actually a literature review or a literature which doesn't belong to any cases in my project, right? So therefore, I will just leave it unticked, right? Okay, so then you click import. Okay, once you click import, right? Okay, you can see here the PDF properties, all right? Go to attributes values tab, all right? Okay, so you have to define, right, what is the file classification for this file, right? So by default, there is no classification for this file yet, right? So you have to tell NVivo this file belong to which classification, right? So if you click on the drop-down menu here, you can see there is reference there. So you choose reference lah. Maksudnya you tell NVivo that this file is actually a reference, right? So therefore, it should have all the attributes of a reference. Okay, so when you click that, right, all the attributes for reference will be displayed, right? And you can enter, right, what are the value for each of the attributes, right? You boleh masukkan kat sini lah directly. For example, you can see here, this reference is actually a journal article, right? You boleh masukkan dia punya author, right? If you know already, right? Okay, let's see lah. I just put any values lah, right? Author A, for example, and so on, right? Okay.
Dr. Makno,
Yes.
I'm Fazila here. I would like to know the new attribute down there. Is that another way to add a new attribute? Just now you show me that
Yes. Yeah. If let's say you
Okay.
forgot to add a new attributes before this, right? You can add it here, right? New attribute, the button new
Okay.
attributes, all right?
Okay, thank you.
So it will be applied to all file that is belong to the file classification that is referenced. Okay. Okay, boleh ya? Right?
Boleh. Thank you.
All right. Okay, so I will not enter all this manually because later on I will show you how you can enter all this value automatically using reference management software if you are using one. But if you don't use any reference management software such as EndNote or Mendeley, meaning that you have to enter all these values manually one by one lah. Right? Okay, so just click OK. Right, so your files already being imported into your projects under files, right? Under files, there is one files called an examination of determinants of entertainment vacation intention to revisit. I normally would recommend you to name your file based on the title of the paper, right? So that it'll be easier. Okay. Right, setakat ni boleh ya? Of course, all right, in your files, you don't have, you can create folder as well, all right? Right? Katakan you ada banyak jenis file, right? For example, you have, this is literature review, this is a journal article. Then you have reports. Then you have, let's say, website and so on. So you can organize your file in much more organized way by creating folder, right? So let's say you can create folder, go to file, right? Click new folder. So let's say this is journal article. Okay. So journal article is listed under files. And then let's say you have another one. Let's say this is reports. Okay. So there's report there, right? So you can just cut this file and put it in journal articles. All right. So I won't do that just now for this for this workshop lah, right? So just to let you know that you can make it more organized, all right? Your files more organized by creating folder, right? Okay. So saya just delete balik lah these two folder, right? Okay, so because semua benda yang saya akan, file yang saya akan upload ataupun import dalam this workshop today is all journal article, so I don't have to create any folder lah, right? Okay, so let's import more files into your NVivo project, right? So let's say you don't have to import one by one. You can import, let's say, in bulk. Maksudnya you boleh import 30 files sekali. You don't have to do one by one actually, right? So for example, I want to import more files into my NVivo, right? So I will just locate the files where it is located in my computer lah, alright? Okay. Where is it? Okay. So I want to import all these files in this folder. For example, I just Control A and then click everything and then open, right? I won't create case for each of the imported file because it doesn't belong to any case in my study. Import. So it will import all the files together, right? You don't have to do it one by one, actually. Give it some time, you will import all the files. Okay, right? So you can see here, all the files are already imported. Okay, boleh ya? Alright. Okay, so far boleh ya? Ada soalan tak setakat ni? Okay, as I just say just now, alright, you can go to, let's say, how do you see the attributes for each files? All right, you can just go to file classification, right? Reference. You can see that, right? There is the one file that I already uploaded. Tadi tu dah ada all the attributes there, right? You can change. Or if let's say you want to see, because yang file yang saya upload banyak-banyak tadi tu saya belum link lagi, saya belum bagi tahu lagi dia punya file classification ya. I haven't told NVivo that it is actually belong to reference, right? Okay. So what you can do is, right, you can just highlight everything. Tadi ni semua. I'll just do 3 lah, for example. Okay, go to files, right? You can go to classification, right click, and then tell NVivo that this file is actually a reference. Okay. So therefore, all these files will have their attributes now, right? Okay, or you can just Control A, right click, and then classification, and then click reference. So you already told NVivo that all these files is actually a reference, and then it should have all the attributes of the reference. Okay, boleh ya? Alright. So you don't have to go through, okay, if you go to back to reference, right, you can see that, okay, the files that belong to this file classifications are already in there, right? And if you click on this plus sign here, right, you can see all the values. You can enter them manually if you don't use any reference management software, right? Or another way to add the value is you can right click here on reference. You can choose open classification sheet, right? Okay, go to reference, right click, open classification sheet. So it will open up some sort of like a table which shows you all the files and then the attributes for each of the files, which you can enter one by one, right? In one go, right? Okay, so this is how you enter the value attributes manually, right? Later on, next I will show you how you can enter all this value automatically using reference management software if you're using one. Okay, can we continue with that? Boleh ya? Setakat ni semua boleh ikut lah. right? So macam tadi kita nak masukkan satu-satu value tu lambat kan, betul tak? Right? So therefore, if you are using any reference management software, actually you tak payah isi one by one manually. You can actually import all the citation into NVivo, right? So next, I will show you how we can enter the value, right, using reference management software if we are using one, right? Okay, so I will stop sharing this one. I will open my EndNote because I'm using EndNotes, right? So for those of you who are using Mendeley pun boleh buat juga sebenarnya, right? Okay. So I will share my EndNote. Right, so this is my EndNotes, right? It it has all the citation, right, for each of the file that I already uploaded in NVivo just now, right? There are 31 references here, which I already uploaded just now. The papers I already uploaded in the NVivo. Now I want to upload the citation, right? Or the value for each of the fields that I've, or attribute that I have created in NVivo. All right, so what you can do to do that, right? Okay, in if you're using EndNote, right, you can do is you can highlight all the files that you want to export into NVivo, right? So in this case, I will export all of this citation for all of these files. So I will just highlight everything lah, shift pick everything. Okay, all right. Kemudian you go to files and export. Right. So for the export file, right? Okay, you have to choose the type as XML, right? In order for you to export this citation into NVivo, you have to save it as XML, right? I already have this file actually in my sample files, right? So I'll just do it lah, right? Okay, so I will save this as sample library, right? And make sure the save as type as XML, then you just save. All right, so meaning that you have already export this or saved all the citation in the format of XML. Okay, boleh ya? Right. So I'll stop sharing this and EndNote. We go back to NVivo. Right, we go back to NVivo. Right, so now you want to import all the citation from EndNote into NVivo.
Dalam subjek UG. Sebenarnya
Okay.
itu adalah kertas projek dan kod itu pun juga sebenarnya adalah untuk kertas projek ataupun kertas ilmiah di bawah IDS, bukan SPM.
Okay. All right, okay. So now I will import the citations from EndNote into NVivo. So you can go to this ribbon and then choose import. All right, and then choose EndNote. All right, then keep the XML files.
Boleh apa dia juga import semasa mesyuarat. Prof, apa ini sebarang?
All right, okay. Okay, so just locate the XML file that you just export just now, right? So this file is actually already there in the sample files that I given. I provide the link just now, right? Okay. Okay, sample library here. All right, so locate the import files, then open. All right. Okay, setakat ni boleh follow ah. All right. Okay, so once you did that, all right, you have to set up a few things here, right? So the first thing that you need to tell NVivo is that how do you want to import, all right? Okay, so in this case, you import from this location, and then you want to name them by, all right, so how do you want to name the citation? Is it based on the title or based on author and year, right? So because I already said just now, I name my file based on the title. So therefore, I will also choose, right, to import the EndNote files based on the title as well, right? So that it can be linked, right? Okay. So, and then do you want to assign, right, all these citations from EndNote to a single classification? So in this case, right, because I only have one file classification in my NVivo, which is reference. So therefore, I'll just choose a single classification, which is reference. If you have created multiple file classification, for example, you have journal, you have reports, you have and so many more, all right, you will be able to choose this one, all right, where all citation will be mapped to different types of file classification, right? But for my case, I only have one file classification, which is reference. So I will just choose a single classification, which is reference lah. Okay, boleh ya? Kemudian already linked here means that, right? NVivo will check, all right, based on the files in your EndNote import files just now, is there any files that is already linked to a citation that is already linked into a files in NVivo, right? So far, all the 31 records that I will be importing has not been linked in any citation in the EndNotes, right? Kemudian, to be linked, for example, right? Kita tengok sini, because we already mentioned, we already told NVivo that we will link the file according to the title. So what NVivo will do is, it will look at the files that you already upload in the NVivo, and then the files name, the title of the papers in citation that you will upload from EndNote, does it match, right? If it matches, then it will link automatically. So if you can see here, based on, you know, NVivo punya checking, it says that 3 of this file can be linked already because the names match, right? In EndNote, it is named the same way as in NVivo. So NVivo can just link them automatically, right? Right? Okay. Kemudian, if you have already filled up some of the fields on the file classification for reference just now, right? You have to tell NVivo whether those fields that you already filled up before this, you want to replace it or retain it, right? So in this case, I will just replace with all the values that is assigned in EndNotes, right? Okay. Kemudian import new pula means what, right? Okay. All right. Because 3 files, all right, already linked, because NVivo check, all right? Okay. File-files yang ada dalam NVivo dengan file-files yang ada dalam EndNote tu ada tak persamaan dari segi nama. Kalau ada persamaan, dia akan link automatically. Alright. 3 dah ada persamaan dari segi nama dia, right? The name of the files. The rest 28 is not matched. Maybe saya terlupa letak comma ke, dash ke, and so on lah, right? Or the spelling is not consistent and so on. So therefore, you have to tell what would you do, what to do for these files, alright? So in this case, I say import unmatched records as new files, right? What it means is, right, katakan dalam EndNotes, right, these files is not yet imported into EndNotes. So therefore, I will ask EndNote ataupun NVivo to locate the files. So this is actually helpful if you are in university network that provide gateway that allows you or allow NVivo and EndNote to actually download the full text for you, right? Which normally doesn't work lah, right? If you're not in university network that provide gateway to the online database that allow them to download the full text for you, this won't work, right? So if you do that, if you have this gateway that allow the NVivo to locate the full text for that files, right? NVivo will try to download the full text for you and create the files, all right? If it can download the files, the file will be placed in the file folders, all right? And if it cannot download the file, it will create the files in external folder, right? So you can see here, in data file, you have files, right? And external, all right? I haven't explained what does files and external means, right? Okay, saya terlupa nak explain tadi. Files means all the files that you can copy into NVivo. All right. So normally, all right, files means that semua file-file yang disupport, dia punya format disupport oleh NVivo, you can upload directly to NVivo and you can view them in NVivo. All right. External mean, all right, if you have file that is not supported by NVivo, right, you can just link this file in NVivo in external. What it means is NVivo will not copy that files into NVivo because, right, the format is not supported. But what NVivo can do is provide a link to that files which you can open in a software that support that files, right? Okay, so that's the difference between files and external. Okay, right? The rest you just leave it as it is, right? Kemudian, okay, remember we already have files in our data, right? Okay, now we want to link the citation and the files, right? Okay, so you just click on advanced. Okay, so you can see here, these are the 31 citation that I want to import into NVivo. You can see here that, right, kalau you tengok files citation number 4, it is already linked to a file in NVivo because nama dia, title dia sama, right? And the title of that paper in EndNote and the title of the name of the files that I use in NVivo match. So therefore, NVivo already linked this file, right? But the rest is actually NVivo tak boleh match sebab maybe saya terlupa nak letak koma ke ataupun nama tu tak consistent, right? Okay, so what you have to tell NVivo is, right, to link this citation to the files in NVivo, right? So you can just click here in match files, right? Click. Okay, by default it will import new. Maksudnya sebab kalau katakan dia tak boleh jumpa file tu dalam NVivo, it will try to go to this import content, right? Pergi ke database tu cari, and if it's able to download the full text for you, it will copy this file into NVivo, right? But which normally doesn't work, right? So you have to tell NVivo that actually this file is actually already there in NVivo, right? So you just select existing, right? And tell NVivo, right? For example, this paper, first paper here is perceived value mediating roles of apa, right? And so on lah. So you have to locate where is it. Okay, this one. Right? You can see here, dekat dalam EndNote saya gunakan semicolon, right? Dalam filing saya letak gunakan dash, right? So that's why dia tak boleh match kan, right? So saya kena bagi tahu bahawa okay, file ni actually ialah yang ni dalam NVivo. So you link this file with the citation. Okay, click OK. And then you have to do this for each of the files lah, right? So this one is the measurement of, right? Okay, nak memudahkan kerja, we can sort this title according to ascending order. Okay, senang, right? So select existing, right? This is actually the first file in NVivo, right? This is actually the second file, assessing facts, so on, right? You do this for all the files, right? Saya tak akan tunjuk semua lah, otherwise it will take forever, right? Okay, so you just import. Okay, boleh ya? Setakat ni boleh follow tak? Ke macam confused? Boleh ya? Right, so I'll just click import. Okay, just give it some time. It will import all the files from citation from the EndNote into NVivo. Right. Okay. So once you did that, right, you can look at, for example, paper number 1 here, examination of. Right? Examination of determinant of entertainment, vacation, and intention to revisit, right? If you click on this attributes, all right, it is already filled up for you, right? Using the files from citation from the EndNote, right? So you don't have to do it manually one by one, right? It is already filled for you. Okay, boleh ya? Okay, boleh ke tak boleh setakat ni? Can I continue?
Yes.
Okay ya, boleh ya? Alright, okay. So, right. If you look at here, right? Okay, kalau kita pergi dekat files balik, right? You can see that, okay, kalau you boleh tengok kat sini, alright? Files number 2 here actually have a memo link to it. Okay, what does this mean? This icon here means, alright? Because okay, kalau kita pergi balik kepada reference tadi, right? File yang kedua dia dah ada attribute, dia dah semua, right? Cuma kalau you tengok dalam attribute keywords, right? Selalunya kalau katakan kita buat gunakan EndNote, dia akan ada keywords sekali dan abstract, betul tak? Right? So because keywords normally consist of multiple words, right? So therefore it cannot be put as an attributes, right? Therefore NVivo will put the keywords, the research note and abstract in memo, right? So if you go there in memo, you can nampak, right? Okay, for all these files, right? Kita tengok file tadi kan, an examination of determinants of entertainment vacationers intention to revisit, right? Dia akan ada satu link dengan memo, right? Dalam memo ni dia akan letak, kalau you klik, right? Dia akan letak abstract, kalau ada abstract, dia akan letak research note dan juga keywords for that paper. Because what? Abstract selalunya panjang, so it is not tak sesuai nak dijadikan sebagai attributes. Sebab attribute selalunya dia akan ambil satu ataupun dua perkataan saja, right? So because abstract is too long, and Vivo create the field abstract is created as the memo. Abstract, keywords, and research note is created as a memo. But it is linked to the files that you have created atau you have imported in NVivo. Okay, boleh tak setakat ni? Okay ya? Alright. So next one, alright, we will continue with how to code your literature, alright? Okay, if you go back to files, alright, you can, let's say, open any of the files, alright? I will open the second files here. You open here. We will open the files for you if you already link it, alright? Kalau you belum buat tak apa, don't worry, right? I'll just show you how it is. Okay, dia akan buka files PDF, right? Remember, in order for you to code a PDF file, it must be in the format of PDF ni kita ada dua format kan. Satu ialah flat PDF, satu unflat PDF, right? Flat PDF maksudnya the PDF has been converted as an image. Maksudnya you tak boleh highlight lagi, right? Kalau dia unflat, maksudnya you boleh highlight, right? Okay, so NVivo works better if the files PDF file is in a format of unflat yang membolehkan you highlight, right? Kalau file sudah di-flatten jadi image, maksudnya you have to use other tools to make sure that it is unflattened, ataupun you boleh gunakan any tools macam OCR punya software to convert it into unflat PDF. Okay, alright. So now we will move to coding dulu, right? I'll stop here. Kalau ada apa-apa soalan, I will explain how what coding is and how we do coding, right? Okay, sebelum saya continue, if there any questions on how to import files, how to link your file with your citation, ada apa-apa soalan tak? Tak ada? Alright, I will just share my PowerPoint again. Right, so we have finished the first part of importing your literature and importing your citation. Okay, we will go through coding your literature, right? Okay, so basically, as I said just now, coding doesn't mean like what you normally, assume coding is, like what you do programming is coding. That's not what coding means here. All right, coding is actually a fundamental task in qualitative project. It involves gathering all the materials about particular themes, concept, or case together for exploration, right? So in short, all right, a code is actually a label or a tag or index that you apply to a set of materials, right, to represent or encapsulate the selected data. So in NVivo, a code is called node, right? Okay, kalau dalam bahasa qualitative data analysis, it is called code. But in NVivo, a code is called a node, right? Okay, one thing you have to remember is coding is not an exclusive process. Maksudnya, alright, satu part of your text does not mean that you have to code it using one code only. Right? You boleh attach more than one code to any parts of your text, right? Okay, so that's what we mean by coding is not an exclusive process. You can attach more than one codes to a particular section of your codes, right? Instead, it is advisable that you attach more than one codes in your text, because what? Therefore, you can see the link between different code later on. Okay. Right. And then, all right, once you code your literature ataupun you punya text, all right, you can arrange all this code in a hierarchical structure, right, where you have parent node and child nodes, right, that allow you to see link between the parents and the child, right? Okay, so this one depends on you what works for you, right? Okay. And then, however, right, you don't have to fully plan on how to structure your codes, right, because it can be developed and changed along the process. Alright, in other words, it is flexible and not rigid. Maksudnya, you tak perlu risau katakan you dah buat satu structure of your coding and later on you nak ubah. Alright, it can be done. Alright, it is not rigid. Maksudnya, kalau you dah buat macam tu, dah arrange macam tu, tak semestinya you tak boleh ubah. Alright, it can be changed later on. But for coding your literature, it is advisable, right? Ataupun it is recommended that you have some key ideas, right? Some ideas of the key things that you want to find in your literature and work out the details along the way, right? For example, of course, bila you buat literature review, you nak cari apa? Of course, maybe you nak cari apakah teori yang dipakai, right? Okay, apakah konsep yang digunakan, how are the concept being measured, operationalized, and so on, right? Betul tak? Right? So it is helpful if you got some ideas of what actually you want to find in your literature. So this is actually an example of coding structure that I use in my project, right? For example, in my project, my research is actually on the concept of perceived value. All right. So therefore, I know when I do my literature review, I want to find, all right, in each paper that I read, I want to find how they define the concept of perceived value, right? Definition of value. And then what are the attributes they use to describe the concept of perceived values, all right? Kemudian, what are the theories that you use, all right? Theories of value, all right? So in this case, I already know because I already did this research. I know that theories of value can be divided into two, right, categories. One is unidimensional values, and then the other one is multidimensional values, right? In unidimensional, I know there are two theories by Monroe and Zeithaml, and then in multidimensional, I know there is Holbrook theories and Shep theories, right? Of course, you don't have to know this beforehand, especially kalau katakan you baru start doing exploring your literature, you don't know all these theories yet, right? Saya cuma tahu sebab saya dah buat benda ni, right? So in this case, you maybe only have the parent notes for this time, right? For this time being, you don't know the parents yet. The childs yet. That is okay, right? And then I want to know other theories. I want to know how the specific values relate to other concepts such as quality, trust, and so on, right? I want to know how perceived value is conceptualized and measured, and then what are the methodology used to study about perceived values, and then what are the antecedents of values, consequence of values, mediators of values, miscellaneous moderators of values, and so on, all right? Okay, so these are the example, all right? I won't say this structure is the best. It's all up to you what you want to know in your literature. You can organize your code according to your needs, all right? Okay. And another question that I already most often asked by people is like, what do I quote? What to quote? And how detailed do I quote my text to my literature? And how do I structure my quotes? The answer for these questions actually depends, right? You have to ask yourself again, why do you do your literature review? Okay, what is the purpose of you doing your literature review? Do you want to know everything about a particular concept and the related concepts? For example, in my case, I want to know everything about perceived value, but I cannot know perceived value without knowing other related concepts. For example, satisfaction, quality, price, and trust, and so on. So therefore, I want to know more details. I don't just want to know about perceived value. I want to know all the related concepts ataupun concept that is related to perceived value. So therefore, I will quote more, right? And then how much do you know about your topics and how much detail you want to know? This is actually what I explained just now. And then do you know exactly what you are trying to find from your literature, right? Kalau you know exactly what you want to find, it is easier that you just go straight into your literature, look at your literature ataupun your articles, and then find where does the thing that you want to find in your literature is located, and then just quote that section, right? If you know already. If not, maybe you have to do some exploration, quote everything that you think is important for now. Later on, it might become unimportant for you. That is okay, right? So the answer of this above, all these questions will guide you on which approach of coding do you adopt, right? Whether you want to do a complete coding or selective coding, right? So what we mean by complete coding and selective coding is, let's say the analogy is you have this paper, right? Imagine this paper is a bowl of candies, M&Ms, right? Okay. So M&Ms tu dia ada banyak color kan, alright? Okay. So these M&Ms or these candies here with varieties of colors refers to different topics in the literature. Okay. So let's say katakan you just nak cari tentang perceived value, right? So therefore when you tackle your coding, maksudnya bila you baca you punya literature review, just find where the concept of perceived values is located in the literature lah, and code that section only. That is what we call as selective coding, right? Okay, you don't code everything, right? But if let's say you baru explore your topic, you don't really know much about, what you are actually trying to find, right? Therefore, you might adopt another approach, what we call as complete coding. Maksudnya you just baca you punya journal articles and then code everything yang you rasa mungkin penting, mungkin tak, you tak sure, just quote saja, right? Later on mungkin dia jadi penting, mungkin tak, right? So in this case, you akan quote lah, right? You akan keluarkan yang M&Ms yang warna coklat, you quotekan sekali, warna kuning sekali dan sebagainya. So this is what we mean as complete coding, or in grounded theories, sometimes it is called line by line coding. Maksudnya you quote saja everything, right? Sebab you tak tahu sama ada dia akan jadi important or not, right? Okay, so the question again is back to you. How do you want to code? Do you know what you want to find? If the answer is yes, you use selective coding. Just find whatever you want to find in your literature and code only that section. If you don't know or you're unsure, then you do complete coding. You put everything that you feel is important at this point. Okay. Right. Kemudian in coding your literature, there are two ways of coding. Yang ni saya akan tunjuk later on, alright, in NVivo. There are two ways, manual coding and auto coding. I will leave this just now until here dulu, alright. We will go back to NVivo. Okay. For this part, I will use the sample files that I already prepare, right? So I can share my NVivo balik. Okay. All right. Okay, so in order for you to code your literature, okay, you have to go to this navigation view, go to code, right? So, and then go to notes, right? So basically you have no codes whatsoever just now, right? Okay, you haven't got any code, right? So therefore you have to create code for your literature. So that's why I say, if you know already, or you have some idea what you want to find in your literature, you can create this code beforehand, before you do the actual coding. But if you don't know, you can just go straight to your files and code, right? So in this case, I normally suggest for most of the participants, right? Of course, you know apa yang you nak cari kan dalam you punya literature bila you do a literature review, right? So I will show you how you create code, right? Okay. For example, right? In my literature review, I want to know, let's say, the first thing that I want to know, I normally use numbering for my code because it make it easier for me to arrange it in a way that a journal article is arranged. Normally, journal article, we will have abstract, introduction, literature review, methodology, findings, discussion, and so on, right? So that's how I arrange my code according to the paper, all right? So normally, the first thing I want to know is, I want to find in my literature is definitions of value, right? Okay, so this is the first node, okay? So by default, there is no text or no passages that is attached to this code yet, right? The second one, I also want to know, okay, cara nak create node, pergi dekat notes, right click, new notes. And the second one is, let's say I want to know what is attributes of value. Of course, this one depend on your own research lah, right? This one is, I show you as an example based on my research. Attributes of value. Okay. Kemudian I want to know theories of values. Right? Okay, so let's say you already know what are the theories available in this area. You can create so all these are called parent node, right? Nodes yang teratas, right? So let's say you want to create child for these nodes, right? What you have to do is click on the parent. So let's say in theories of value, I want to create two childs for these theories of value, because I know in theories of values, you can divide it into two categories. One is unidimensional values. The other one is multi-dimensional values. So I want to create two childs for these theories of value. So what I do is I just click on the parents, right? Right click, right? Right click, removes. Okay, new nodes, right click on the parent and click new node, right? So let's say I put, this is unidimensional. Right, so by default, all right, so unidimensional is the child of theories of value, and the other one is multi-dimensional, right? Right? So theories of value as a parent has two child, multi-dimensional and unidimensional, right? That's how you create child and parent nodes. For example, if you do some mistake, let's say you want to change the structure, you can always, let's say katakan, now saya tunjuk sebagai contoh saja, alright? Let's say katakan you nak masukkan definition of value ni sebagai child kepada theories of value, right? What you can do is click on definition of value, right click, cut, right? Go to the parent, right? Theories of value, and then you paste. So therefore now, definition of values will become the child of theories of value, child nodes. Okay, so that's how you structure the nodes. Okay, yang ni boleh tak? How to create the nodes? Setakat ni boleh ah? Okay, good. Right. So sekarang saya tak akan gunakan semua ni. Saya akan gunakan the sample files that I already created because to save time, right? I will just close this project. Okay. And then I will open the project, all right, that I have already prepared. Okay. Okay, so you can download this file from the link that I just provided, right? Okay, so kalau you tengok kat sini, saya dah create all the notes, alright? Okay, so sekarang kita nak coding. Gunakan code ni, nak attachkan code ni kepada you punya literature, alright? So we go to files, okay? If you can see here, alright, I have 31 files here, right? And then 4 files has already been coded, right? You can see here, right? File number 1 has 32 codes attached to it, right? File number 2 has the 23 codes attached to it, and so on, right? So let's try code the 5th files, right? So effect of experiential value on customer satisfaction with service encounter in luxury hotel restaurant, for example. All right, so just double click this file. It will open the file. Okay. So you can just zoom this so that it fits the page, right? Okay. And then I will open my notes so that I have some ideas of what are the notes available for me to code. Alright, so sekarang kita buatlah, kita bacalah kita punya literature, alright? Okay, so you go to introduction and so on, blah, 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 blah. Alright, so let's say you come across this section here that talk about consumer satisfaction. So you rasa, okay, this is important for me because I want to know what is consumer satisfaction is. So I want to code this part of the literature. So what you can do is you can highlight this part, right? Right click and code. And then you have to specify for this part of the literature, I want to code it under, let's say, how does perceived value relate to other concept, which is satisfaction, right? Click on satisfaction, right? So you just click OK, right? Click OK. So meaning that this portion of the text is already copied in the notes, right? So if you go back to your notes, right? Tadi saya letakkan dia di bawah ni. Mana tadi? Perceived value versus other concept. Okay, under satisfaction kan? Kalau you tengok kat sini, under satisfaction there are already 5 codes, right? I can double click this notes, right? So ini adalah all the passage yang bercakap tentang satisfaction from different files, right? Dalam file pertama ada 1, 2, 3, 4 dan sebagainya. Ini adalah yang saya highlight tadi tu. It comes down here. Right? Paper yang saya highlight tadi tu, right? Ini effect of experiential value on apa-apa bla 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 ni. Ini yang saya highlight tadi, dia cuma ambil that portion saja masukkan dalam ni. Right? So in this case, you nampak tak? It make it easier for you to read only about satisfaction from different files all at one time. Right? You don't have to open multiple files, you know, ataupun you kena cari file yang berbeza-beza untuk baca tentang satisfaction dan locate kat mana. Sebab what NVivo do is it pull out everything about satisfaction into one file that allow you to read them together and compare them. Right? Okay, that's how NVivo helps you in doing your literature review. Sebab apa? If you, one of the weaknesses bila saya baca paper students, right? Because they don't use this NVivo, for example, right? They will always write their literature review such as this, right? Okay. Author A say this, author B say this, author C say this. When in fact, actually, all 3 authors are actually talking about the same thing, which they don't do some comparison or analysis of the findings, right? So that's is a bit, you know, incoherent ataupun macam ni nak cakap, an analytical way of writing literature review, right? But with NVivo, you can read, let's say, for example, you want to write about satisfaction, you can just read all them together, and then you do some comparison, then you do some analysis or you synthesize, and then write it in a more coherent way, right? Okay, boleh tak? So let's say katakan yang kedua ni, right? This is service encounter, right? I want to, let's say, put this as service encounter. So therefore, katakan saya nak letakkan dia di bawah perceived value versus other related concepts, but service encounter is not there yet. Alright, so therefore, I just click on the parent, right? And I create new node di bawah this parent. Maksudnya saya nak create satu node yang dinamakan service encounter sebagai child kepada this parent node. Right, so click on the parent, click new nodes, right, and name this new node as service encounter, right, and then click OK. So NVivo copy this part of the passage into this node, right? So you go back to your nodes. Nampak tak service encounter ada satu baru, right? So you double click. So Tara, there it is. Okay. Right. So let's go. Okay. Pergi lagi. So you baca lah. So the way you nak code ni depends lah. You rasa benda yang penting you code lah, alright? Okay. For example, alright, yang saya cakap ni, alright, as I said before this, it is not necessary yang you use only one code for a portion of text. For example, untuk teks yang saya ada highlight ni tadi, saya gunakan satu code saja kan, which is service encounter. Maybe selepas saya baca teks ni, saya rasa okay, dalam paragraph ni actually dia bukan bercerita tentang service encounter saja. It also talk about, let's say, satisfaction, for example, right? So therefore, I can also code this portion of text using another code, which is satisfaction. So meaning that this portion of text has been coded using two codes, which is service encounter and satisfaction. Okay, boleh tak setakat ni? I'll give you some times to, explore how to code, right? Kalau ada apa-apa soalan boleh tanya. Right? Kemudian, alright, I will show you another things that you can do in NVivo. Let's say katakan you nak code, okay, ini adalah findings for this paper, right? It is in a form of diagram. Okay, so, okay, you nak copy this diagram, nak code this diagram, right? So kalau you tengok, you tak boleh nak highlight the diagram because by default NVivo only allow you to highlight only text. So for diagram, you have to use this option called region, right? Region. So if you want to code, let's say a picture, a diagram or whatsoever, right, which is not text, so you can use this option called region, right? Click on region. Okay. So I just, highlight this, for example, diagram. So, and then I will code this diagram. So for example, right, in this diagram, right, diagram ni bercakap tentang beberapa konsep. For example, it talks about value, right? Where is value? Okay, perceived value saya letak kat atas sebab dia ada parents, alright? Perceived value. It also talk about customer satisfaction. So therefore, you nak juga code dia pada satisfaction. So tekan button control and click satisfaction. Alright, it also talk about all these other things lah, alright? For example, setting, service employees, for example, let's say this one all refers to, let's say, behavior, for example. So I want to code this diagram into 3 codes, which is perceived value, behavior, and satisfaction. So I can just click on control and then choose all these 3 nodes, then click OK. Right? Click OK. Right? So NVivo has coded this diagram into the 3 nodes that you have chosen. Right? For example, if you go to behavior, okay, yang ni saya nak tunjuk lagi sekali, alright? If you go to behavior, because we have coded this diagram into the nodes called behavior, right? When you open the nodes behavior, right? These are all the text that talk about behavior. But at one point you can see there, see here, right? For this one, dia tak tunjukkan apa-apa. It just show you that, alright, this number. Ini menunjukkan bahawa ini adalah diagram, right? Okay, so meaning that this is a diagram actually, right? So NVivo, you have coded a diagram. So therefore, in order to see this diagram, right, you can go to PDF, right? So yang ni adalah experiential value of customer, kan? Okay, you ambil mana tadi, effects, alright, effects. Okay, open this and then click PDF. Scroll, you nampak tak? Alright, dalam this file here, cuma this diagram is highlighted. Maksudnya, you only concerned about this diagram. Okay, and NVivo doesn't copy the diagram into the notes, alright, but it provide a link to that diagram. Okay, any questions? Boleh tak coding? Boleh ya? So kalau you tengok kat sini, actually kebaikan NVivo ialah dia membolehkan you baca, right, your literature, right, in a more organized way. For example, saya nak baca tentang switching cost sahaja from different files, right? So I just click on switching cost. It can pull out everything about switching cost saja. I don't have to worry about everything else because everything here is all about switching costs, right? Okay, and so on. Okay. Okay, so I'll continue, right? Let's say katakan tadi kita go to the methodology tadi. Methodology of this paper. Okay. Just choose text, right? So kalau kita tengok sini operational definition and so on, alright, this paper actually using questionnaire, right? Kemudian of course it is quantitative, right? So remember tadi you ada create attributes nak menunjukkan sama ada paper tu quantitative or qualitative or whatsoever, right? Okay. So what you can do here is you go to the file effects of, alright, you open classification sheet, alright, inilah files, right, you boleh bagi tahu lah, alright, this paper is actually a quantitative paper. It is based on where, let's say katakan this is based on USA, right, it is done in, let's say, hospitality industries, for example, and then it use how many sample, kena carilah dalam ni, right, how many samples for this paper, sample size, kena baca lah, alright. So I just put it here, let's say 100 lah, okay. Right, so you have the value for this attributes. Okay, setakat ni boleh tak? Kalau tak ada apa persoalan, saya nak continue dengan how you do queries. Tak ada soalan lah? Berapa dah? Right, 12 lah. Okay, dah lebih dah. Alright, okay. I will just continue with queries, okay. Now, queries is actually a way for you to explore your data, right? For example, right, I open my queries. It is under search, right? Queries. Under my queries, I actually already created, right? For example, I have coded different concepts in my literature. I want to see a relationship among all these concepts, right? For example, I want to see what is the relationship between value and satisfaction, all right? Trust and price, for example, all right? So you can do queries for this, for your coding, right? I will just run this query first. Later on, I will show you how I did this, right? Okay. Contohnya saya nak tengok apakah hubungan antara, let's say, loyalty and satisfaction. Alright, so saya buat query ni. By these queries, it actually create a let's say an intersection of the codes, right? And find the intersection of the codes that you have done. Alright, so in this case, loyalty and satisfaction, there are 12 references that talk about loyalty and satisfaction, which means that I can find text that has been coded using 2 codes, which is loyalty and satisfaction. So if I open this, right, open this, I click this cell here, it will pull all the text that talk about loyalty and satisfaction. So therefore, I can read all the text that has been pulled for me and see what is the relationship between loyalty and satisfaction. Okay, right. So the way you do this, actually, all right, of course, you have to finish your coding first, right? So you go to the detail list view, all right? Click on, okay, there are multiple options for you to create queries, all right? For my case here, I want to do a metric coding. Metric coding maksudnya, saya nak compare code dengan code, all right? So what I do is, I click on metric coding, right? So you have to specify kat mana NVivo perlu search for the data, right? Either by default, it will search in file and external, maksudnya you punya files in your literature, or you can also specify, let's say you want to NVivo to find the data in specific folder, for example, right? You will choose selected folders lah. But for my case, I want NVivo to find, all right, all the data in all the files that I have uploaded in NVivo, all right? Kemudian saya nak compare between what and what. You have to tell what will be in the row and what will be in the column. All right. So therefore, okay, I can choose select item. Right. I will go to codes, notes. All right. Okay. So let's say tadi saya dah code perceived value dan banyak konsep lah. Alright. Saya nak cari effective reaction. Right. Saya klik semua lah, everything lah. Right. It automatically select descendant nodes, right? So dia akan select everything. Okay, so ini semua kod-kod ni akan berada dalam row, right? And then I will want to compare this. Kita nak buat macam metric kan, macam dia akan jadi apa? Comparison between concept and concept, right? So in column I will also select the same thing, right? I will go to node. Okay, so it will add all the nodes. Okay, so you run your query. Okay, so NVivo will find, right, pieces of text that has been coded by 2 codes that you specify here in your table. Okay, dia lambat sikit sebab dia nak cari daripada semua file. Okay, once done, okay, kita boleh tengok kat sini, alright. Ada 4 references, alright. Maksudnya ada 11 pieces of passages yang bercakap tentang hubungan antara loyalty and perceived value. So kalau you nak tengok what are the 11 passages, you can just click on this cell. So these are all the pieces of text that talk about loyalty and perceived value, right? So it make it easier for you to write your literature about what is the relationship between loyalty and perceived value according to different authors. Okay, right? Okay, so this is how you create queries, right? Of course, there are other queries that you can create, but this one is the most useful, right? Okay, other queries that you can create in your project, for example, explore, right? You can also search for text. Okay. Right. For example, you nak cari perkataan quality dalam semua you punya files. Alright. Okay. So you can just specify like, I want to find the word quality in all of the files. Okay. Kemudian you can specify, do you want to find exact match? For example, if I type quality, it will only find the word quality in all files, right? Or you can specify you want to, expand it into stem word in this case. All right. If I want to find talk, all right, it will also find talking for me, or synonym. It will also find speak. Right. If you drop down more, all right, it will also find whisper. So all this will be grouped together, right? Okay, so in this case, let's say kita akan try sampai sini sajalah tengah, right? Run queries. It will find the word quality in all of the files, right? Okay, so kalau you tengok, right, dalam file yang pertama ada 17 perkataan quality digunakan. File kedua ada 13 dan sebagainya. Kalau you nak tengok, you just click lah, it will highlight the word. This one is not actually really useful for me because, this can be done in words, right? Another type of queries that you can use, right, is word frequency, right? How frequent a word is being used in certain files, right? So let's say you nak cari perkataan apa, right? Okay. So in this case, let's say, yang ni bukan you cari perkataan, you nak listkan apakah perkataan yang sering digunakan, right? So in this case, it will search, let's say, 1000 perkataan yang paling kerap digunakan dalam semua files, right? With minimum length 3, maksudnya dia akan cari perkataan yang ada sekurang-kurangnya 3 huruf, right? Of course, you can increase this, right? So let's say if you cakap minimum length is 3, dia akan still list like the, THE, right? Which is not really meaningful. You can, let's say, increase it to 5, right? And then run query. So based off all these files that yang you ada, alright? Okay, the word values is the most common use words dengan 4174 kali, right, digunakan dan sebagainya lah. This is again is not really useful for me in doing literature review lah, right? The most useful one is the metric coding, or another one is what we call as cross tab. Okay, cross tab ialah contoh yang macam ni. Right, saya tunjuk dulu contoh dia. Cross tab maksudnya buat cross tabulation. Saya nak tengok, alright. Saya ada 2 teori, alright. Saya nak tengok teori ni digunakan di mana, alright. So for example, I have theory of planned behavior and theory of reasoned action, and then I want to see whether these theories has been used in which field of application. Is it hospitality dan sebagainya, and then has it been used, what approach of research has been used to study about, to use this theory, right? Kalau kita tengok kat sini, all these 2 theories has been used in theories in hospitality industries, and the 2 approach that has been used is quantitative, right? Okay, saya akan tunjuk macam mana nak buat benda ni, cross tab. I will be a bit fast sebab kita dah habis masa sebenarnya, right? New queries, cross tab. Okay, so you nak buat cross tab against what? You kena bagi tahu lah, right? Is it against attributes ke, against nodes ke, against cases ke dan sebagainya, right? So in this case, I want to cross tab against attributes. Okay, so I will choose what are the codes, right? So saya nak cari tentang theories, okay, ataupun ada theory lah. Tadi saya buat theories of value, right? Other theories I use these 2 theories. Saya ambil 4 teori ni. Okay, this will be your row. Kemudian you nak cross tabs against what, right? So let's say you nak cross tab against reference. Okay, you kena bagi tahu dulu classification apa. This is in reference. Based on attributes, let's say katakan research approach. The first level is research approach. Kemudian saya nak tengok in terms of, let's say just now I use, saya akan gunakan sample size pula lah. Okay, run the queries. It will show you the cross tab. Alright, okay. So far tak ada lagi. Ada ke? Alright, ada satu paper yang menggunakan teori Saitama. Dia menggunakan quantitative approach and the sampling size is 275. Right? So if you want to see the result, you can just click on the cell. It will show you. Right? And of course, you can add these queries into your project, which you can run again later. Right? Or you can save the result if you want to, copy this into your report or your paper. If let's say you do some meta-analysis paper, you can copy this result into your paper and so on. Okay, so that's all. I think yang saya akan share untuk this workshop. If you have any questions, you can just ask me. So I pass back to Dr. Mafita ataupun Dr. Mazlan.
Dalam chat Dr. Makno.
Okay.
Can you read it?
Is it possible doing coding for literature reference and doing coding for interview? Yes, it is possible. Tapi Dr. Intan, dia sebenarnya you boleh, kalau katakan you buat qualitative research, you boleh masukkan you punya literature review dengan you punya data sekali. Right? Tetapi of course, that is based on my personal preference lah. I would separate those two sebab apa, nanti you akan pening. Sebab banyak sangat code. You tak tahu code ni ialah code tentang interview you ataupun code tentang you punya literature. Alright. So my personal preference, I will separate those two. My research data and my literature review. Right. Of course, you can do that together. Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Muhammad Noor. So I believe that all of you are well understand with the NVivo because the delivery of the Dr. Makno, I think is very easy to understand. Okay, well explained. Congratulations, Dr. Muhammad Noor. Dr. Makno, so I can conclude that the NVivo application actually is meant for organize our literature or literature review in a very structured way. Is it true?
Yeah. So when I say NVivo for literature review, I always, sometimes I am afraid that people will expect that NVivo will write literature review for you. Of course, it did not. It does not write literature review for you. It only help you in organizing your literature review in a more meaningful and easier for you to analyze. Right? As with other software, they will not do analysis for you. You are the one who instruct the software to do what you want to do. Right? It just help you, right, to do the analysis.
Yes, actually it's very good because I thought the NVivo is for the analysis tool, maybe producing some, I don't know, because this is for qualitative research. I thought the NVivo is for producing some figures, like quantitative tools like SPSS, PLS, or something like that.
Actually, NVivo can create a diagram for you, right? It can actually do sentiment analysis. It can also do cluster analysis for you based on words, right? It can do like brainstorming ataupun apa kita panggil apa? Kita panggil word cloud, right? For you, you can also use and you can also use NVivo to create like for brainstorming, macam kita buat apa? Mind map, okay? It can do that for you, right? Of course, I cannot cover everything today, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. One more thing. I actually before this I'm using the Mendeley. And after your explanation just now, Dr. Mano, I find that the NVivo is very spectacular. It can you know that we can link with the relationship with all the literature reviews, and it's of course simplify our work in doing research.
Yeah, especially if you are just starting your research, right? Actually, I always encourage people to use NVivo because, remember, if you are not using any tools such as NVivo, right? You do it manually, all right? You can do your literature review, but you remember, you can write your literature review, but once you conduct your research, right? Later on, once you want to write your paper, you have to do another part, which is discussion, right? where you have to refer back to your literature review. That is when the problem comes, because you dah buat literature review tu dah lama, right? Kemudian you dah tak ingat tau, right?
Yes.
So when you want to write your
Yes.
dissertation, you have to refer back to your literature review. So kalau you tak ada something that you jot down your memories like NVivo, you will be in trouble. That's what I face when I do my PhD, because I don't use NVivo when I do my PhD for my literature review. So bila nak tulis discussion tu, I struggle because, you know, when I do my literature review, I do it manually. Then when I want to put my findings into context, right, and refer back to literature, I have to go for each of the, you know, hard copy of the
Yes.
file and find where it is.
Yes, I feel you. Okay, so now I will open to the question for others. If you have any questions, maybe 2 or 3 questions, perhaps, due to limited time that we have right now. Okay, maybe some of you are preparing cooking for for your family. Okay, maybe in the 5 to 6 minutes times, maybe you have a question to answer to ask Dr. Muhammad Noor, please.
NVivo is not Dr. Chong Yen Wan. It is, sadly, it is not available in UUM. I don't know why. All right. So you have actually to fork out your own money to buy NVivo, which costs around 3,000 something, right? So sadly, it is not available, right? For the full version, I mean. Okay. So yeah, it's not available. So you have to use the trial version, or you have to, you know, use your grant money to buy. Normally, I once asked this question, why it is not available, and they say that if you want it, you have to buy it using your grant money, right? Which is a bit sad, because, you know, nowadays people are using NVivo not just to use for qualitative research, they use to write meta-analysis paper, right? Because nowadays a lot of journals are ready to publish your literature review as long as you can prove that it is done in a systematic way, right? So yeah, it's a bit sad.
Is it 3,000 for one-off payment, or do we need to renew every one time payment? One time payment. Okay. Okay, we got a question
if
from
there is
Dr.
no
Naim.
yeah, Lab Oya, yeah, Lab Oya maybe ada. All right, I'm not sure. Right. Lab Oya ada, but last time I use it, it is version 8. They don't upgrade it into version 12 yet. I'm not sure if they have already upgraded into version 12, right? But that is for only to be used by Oya staff only, right? It is not available for other staff, UUM staff, right? Okay. If there is no question, I just want satu is Dr. Mazlan, I want to share soalan yang saya selalu ditanya juga when I conduct this workshop. Okay. Some people ask me, right? Okay, should you quote literature review section of the paper you are reviewing? Right? For example, you have author A in 1990 says, right? Okay. For example, author A in 1990, he says that X causes Y. All right. So author A was cited by author B. All right. In 2010. So in this case, author B says that, okay, author A says in 1990, X causes Y. So therefore, you yourself doing a literature review, right? You actually only have your hands on author B's paper. You don't have your apa access to author A, right? So should you put, all right, your apa tu your what author A says based on what author B says, all right? So this depends lah, right? So in my case, I would say it depends. If you decide to cite what author A says based on author B's punya paper, you always have to at least verify the findings to the original source lah. Find the original paper and then verify whether it is really that X cause Y. Okay, so that's it lah. All right.
Okay, we've got one more question from Nadia Abdul Latif. Okay, can you I read for you. If we use Mendeley, cara nak import the PDF tu sama je ke?
Cara nak yes, for
PDF file.
PDF file sama saja. Alright, cuma untuk import the citation, you have to use format RIS. Alright, kalau EndNote you guna format XML, kalau Mendeley guna RIS format.
Okay, Dr. Muhammad Noor, one last question. This is come from the SQS staff. Okay.
Okay.
He messaged me privately. Is it similar NVivo to Mendeley? Okay, I think you already explained this one. Which one is more helpful? Either using NVivo or Mendeley?
Okay, you have to differentiate between these two, alright?
Yeah.
Mendeley is actually only for you to manage your citation, right? Citation sahaja, ya. So meaning that it help you in writing your citation, right? But NVivo is actually useful. Dr. Mazam boleh dengar tak?
Yes. Continue. Continue. We're losing you. Kemana? We're losing you. Hello, Dr. Mano? Okay, we got a technical glitch, technical difficulties right now. Maybe Dr. Mano will get back. But of course, sorry. Okay, but of course, a face-to-face meeting will be more effective, I believe, because this is a very good sharing thoughts. Okay, maybe after the pandemic, we will arrange Dr. Muhammad Noor to our school to conduct the face-to-face workshop. Okay, based on the demand. Okay, based on the demand. So I hope that this session will be continue after this, maybe on the future time. Okay, in the future time. So I will stop here. So I would like to thank all of you for joining us on behalf of the JK Seminar and Latihan SQS. And actually this webinar is organized by both and also
Sorry, saya disconnect tadi. My
okay, Dr. Mano, okay.
Okay, tadi kat mana?
Okay, actually, we're going to conclude. We're going to
Okay.
conclude the session. We're going to conclude the session because it's already 12:30. So I believe that all the questions can be posted. Or you can ask Dr. Muhammad Noor after this. Okay. And I will collect all the information. Whether we are going to continue with the second series or third series based on the demand. Because I find that NVivo is very useful for the researchers and for the academician like us. Okay, once again, thank you, Dr. Mano, for the elaboration and introduction of the NVivo. So hopefully, SQS will invite you face to face. I don't know whether it's free or need to be charged. If we invite him, we invite you face to face. In the future, to deliver the NVivo workshop in the future. Okay. So I would like to thank you once again, all of you. So before we end the session, could you please on the camera, turn on the camera because I want to snap some photos. Okay. Okay, please turn on the camera, please. More. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3, go. Okay, next page. Okay, 1, 2, 3, go. Okay, thank you once again for all of you and Assalamualaikum.
Salam.
Okay, before we leave, for those who still do not scan the attendance, you can do so by scanning right now. So the attendance screen is shared right now.
Saya mana?
Sama.
Aku tak with the NVivo lah orang. Tak diri dulu.